There it is. So be the market expert. And to dive into it, I think this one's an interesting article. So this came out on the 3rd of July before we all celebrate our long weekend. And it said the health of the housing market comparing 2024 data to 2011. So as we're looking at this thing, kind of interesting because again, you're sitting around somewhere around 7%. And it's talking about the high home prices. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. That is 2024's real estate market. High home prices, high interest rates, and it's just causing everything to truly slow down. And as we're looking at it, as people are quick to panic over any part of the housing market that looks stressed, fearing that we're going to see 2008 levels of destruction all over again. And it is interesting when we talk about real estate in 2008, and truly because everyone just thinks that this is really, with everything slowing down the way that it is, that we are in this bubble or this crash or this silver tsunami or insert whatever reason here for just chaos. And I don't truly know why there are these people out there that that's what they just like hope for. I get why, Fox, CNN, YouTube, Twitter, they put this information out there because this is what gets headlines, but I don't understand why everyone else does it. But if we were to look at this first one, the underwater homes. So if we were to look back, it says that in the fourth quarter of 2010, 23.1% of homes were underwater. And in 2024, that number is about 1.8%. So we're talking 2010, almost a quarter of every home in the United States was underwater. And where we are right now, we're sitting at 1.8%, which is the lowest level ever recorded. And so it's kind of interesting. If we look at this thing, it says approximately 1 million homes. Most borrowers have better than 50% loan to value. So if we're looking at this top left corner, right, we say that 8.9% of the housing population that has a mortgage, they're sitting somewhere around a 50 to 54% LTV. And then as we're getting more loan to value ratio, the numbers are getting smaller and smaller, which is interesting because it's negative equity. So these are the people that are in some kind of potential foreclosure risk at 1.8%. And I think that if we're looking at this number right here for at least Colorado, because while I don't think that this is representative of our state whatsoever, if I was thinking about like the people that are in these negative equity positions, these are like your CHFA buyers, right? Like these are the people that are going through that have taken out a silent second or something to where like they're immediately underwater, almost like a house, right? Like when we start talking about like, or not a house, we're obviously talking about houses, like a car. And when I think about like someone taking a car off the lot, right? They finance the whole thing and then they wrap around title and insurance and everything else, and then immediately they drive it off the lot, and the car is completely leveraged, and they're able to put on all these add-ons onto it, which truly just destroys the loan to value at that point. That's what this is kind of looking like when I start thinking about CHFA. I think the other things that we would see for negative equity positions, probably someone that's refied all of the cash out of their house. And we're probably talking about like the 1 million plus price point. I think like if you and I were to get onto RE Colorado right now and we were to look at these pre-foreclosures or foreclosure statuses, I would assume that most all of those houses are going to be probably north of 1 million. And we would also see some probably first time home buyers in this CHFA range that have this negative equity, but I doubt that they're probably in a foreclosure issue now. And again, like when we're starting about negative equity, I think the negative equity is only an issue if you lose your job and the bank is forcing you to push out. Because negative equity, that doesn't necessarily mean they're in foreclosure, right? This doesn't mean that they're in a pre-foreclosure issue. This truly just means that they have a $500,000 house and the mortgage is, five for 550, right? It means something along those lines. So this only becomes an issue if they can no longer make their house payment.
Could it be like short sales then?
It could be, but that I guess that's more of my point is that when we're
Okay.
looking at this right here, This doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to foreclose. They're going to go through short sale. This just
Right.
means that if they have a house and the house is worth $600,000, that they're making a mortgage payment of 650,000, right? It's just somewhere north of that, which only becomes an issue when they can no longer make their house payment, which is truly what the Fed's purpose is right now, is to put us into more of this job loss, um, which then we could maybe see some short sales, foreclosures. And you're absolutely right, we would see more short sales popping up, especially with the amount of equity these people have in their houses. Absolutely, you're right. So then the next thing that it talks about is this days on market. So days on market between compared from 2024 to 2011, we're looking at this thing says in 2011 it took over 100 days to close a transaction. And if we were to look right now from NAR tracking their data, we're sitting at 24 days nationally speaking right now. So it's taking, 2/3 less time as what it did back in 2011 to sell a house. So we're still talking 30 days, less than 30 days on market, seller's market. And we're looking at 24 days versus 2011, which is also interesting because in 2011, there was over 3 million active listings to start the year. And what we had was 1.1 million. So we're talking, it's taking only, 30 days to sell a house, and we have only a third of the listings that they had back in 2008 with a bigger population. And I think that's kind of what we have to just keep in mind and just keep reinforcing this message, is that our market looks so much different than what it did in 2008 because our um, we're going through and we have some of the best home ownership, right? We're talking about these people are super well qualified. They're not going through back in like they were back in 2008, where fog and mirror, you can get a mortgage, and if you wanted a second one or a third one, as long as you're Pinhead Inc., we'll just keep giving you. What we really have right now is that there's these people that are continuously moving in. People are having children. People are buying houses, and there is less inventory for them to buy.
When they talk
Then,
about the 24 days on market, does that mean 24 days and they go under contract? Because what I understood was if you tell a seller, expect it to be on the market for 24 days, then you get an offer, then you're on the market for 30 more days, but you're not active on the market, you're under contract.
correct, this is active
Okay,
listing. So while it might take 30 days to close, they're just saying
right.
that 24 days was truly on the MLS.
Okay, and then 30 more
Versus,
days after that. So essentially I tell my sellers, wait, you're gonna be there 60 to 90 days. We gotta figure that you're gonna get an offer after that.
yeah, like if we were to look at this right now, our
Yeah,
median days on the MLS is really 12. Like this is brand new data. We'll get to this right now or next, but in the Denver metro, we're 12 days on market. So you got to figure your contract period plus 12 days is what we're really looking at. So we're talking what 42 days ish. Um, and then new listings data, which we'll look at the next slide again, or the next this third tab. But if we were looking over here, it's really saying last week we had, or last week in 2011. So this time 2011, we were sitting at 396,000 homes that had come to the market. Our new listing data is 70,000 new homes. So super interesting. Like as we're looking at this thing and we're having these conversations with people, most people are not underwater. More than 50% of all borrowers, so people with a mortgage, have approximately 50% equity in their home right now, which is huge. So this is truly only 1.8% have negative equity, which again is only an issue if they have to sell their house. This doesn't mean that they can't make their payment. This just means that the payment that they're making is more than what their home is worth. Our days on market is significantly less than what it was back in 2011. New listing data, we have way less houses than we had back in 2011 hitting the market. Yet if we were to look at it versus like 2022 versus 2023, we're right in the middle. And then here's your foreclosures. So foreclosures and new bankruptcies are still below pre-pandemic levels. So we like to go 2019 for everything because we think of that as a normal market. And it says there's only 44,000 foreclosures started in Q1 of 2024 nationwide. And again, I think that we have to keep in mind that this is really in a lot of these southern states. And for a lot of different reasons. And I think we have some stuff that we'll point to this here next. But here we are, right? So here's Q1 or Q4 of 21. Here's Q1 of 23. And we can see that this is where the foreclosure line data is. If we were to look back, this is what we saw 05, 06, 08, 09, right? It was just rising and rising. So we are still better situation than we were back in 2019. Obviously, 2020, 2021, we had very, very small foreclosures just because money was free and people, I mean, you could sell a house. It didn't matter what the condition of the house was. People were buyers in that market. So this is pretty neat data, and I think this is important only because as we're having these conversations, we just need to be able to say like at a national level, and people are hearing information, and we can see this. We can see like no, only 44,000 foreclosures were started in Q1 of 2024 across the nation. We have way less inventory than we've had back in 2011. Our days on market are nationally speaking 24 versus the 100 it was back in 2011. And we have most home borrowers that have a mortgage on their home have at least 50% equity in their home, half, which is huge. This is approximately 1 million homes. Most borrowers have better than 50% LTV, which is huge. So staying on that same route, because again, this is the conversation that I think we're having more and more, especially as interest rates aren't going down and homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer. So it says renowned housing analyst who predicted the 2008 home price crash weighed in on the current market. So the guy's name is Bill McBride. And if we were to look at what he's doing, this is just a Q&A between this Resi Club and him. So it says, historically speaking, the economy usually sees a rollover in residential construction employment prior to the onset of the recession. So far, residential construction employment has stayed near. So we talked about this in the past, right? So on previous calls, we've talked about this job loss recession that the Fed is pushing for, and we've seen inflation come down. We've seen them be able to start to curb it, and it's going the other way. But rates haven't come down. And I know that while we were on Coffee Talk on Monday, Mitch was like, "Well, we don't need the Fed to do anything with rates for mortgage rates to go down," and it definitely helps. And so what we do know that as jobs are starting to disappear, we will potentially start seeing rates come down because then we've seen that the economy is no longer growing at the rate that the Fed is trying to curb. So we've looked at this, and it says this: it says the current residential construction weakness, as you noted, is in the multifamily sector, and this isn't as reliable and a leading indicator of the economy as the single family. Because again, right, when we're talking about single family home sector, that is more of your affluent buyers that are going through, and we're talking about multifamily. Multifamily could be apartments, it could be condos, right? It could be something, it could be townhomes, it could be something in there, so less affluent. And it's saying that the construction employment decline could start happening later this year or 2025 as multifamily units are completed. And there's also weakness in some commercial real estate sectors, especially in office and retail sectors. And so we've seen this, we've talked about this. Permits are at an all-time low. They are not pulling as many permits for any of the housing anymore. And the big reason for that is because of the cost of money, right? When we start talking about the cost of money, and they are not a nonprofit, these companies that are building houses are not a not-for-profit company. They are a for-profit company. They're not a charity. And so they want to make as much money as they possibly can. They don't want to be caught holding the bag like they were back in 2008. So what this is saying is we know based off of what the Team Rally slides that we looked at about 2 weeks ago, that it takes about 2 years to complete a multifamily project once the permit is pulled. And so we're talking that all this construction that we see, and especially in Arvada, like we were to drive around Arvada right now, we're starting to actually see these projects. Like even I can't remember what it's called. I think it's named after a flower. Or so I think it's the Caroline project or something that is happening on 58th right now, and 64th and Ralston, where that old Kmart was. That they're actually going through, and they're like, that project, they're actually starting to do leasing now. So that project's coming to an end. And while we're seeing this construction going on around us, and yes, it's still happening, a lot of it is starting to finish up and they're not pulling as many permits. If we were to look at this thing and it's saying US housing starts by category. So let me shrink this a little bit. So single family in the dark blue, then we have multifamily in this yellow, and we're going to call multifamily 2 to 4 units in black. So we're talking duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes. Let's talk condos on the 5 units plus, and then single family. We can see the significant drop off in 2008, right? They stopped building because it didn't make sense for them with the economy the way that it is. And everything started to pick back up. And we saw all these things. We looked at this slide last week with all of these the stock market evaluations on these builders were going up and they were going up and they were going up. Now they're pulling back, right? They're putting on the brakes a little bit because homes are starting to slow down. So you can see that they're starting to dip, maybe trick up a little bit, but they're slowing down on all this, especially in multifamily, because they don't make as much money on it. Inventory levels, right? It says is rising year over year basis. National home prices continue to inch higher. Is there a certain level of inventory or month of supplies in which you think that we'll start to see national home prices fall? So this one's interesting because we start thinking about like 6 right? We start thinking about 6 months of inventory, then we start shifting into a different market as far as the pendulum swings between buyer's market and seller's market. We're truly in a seller's market right now. And as we're looking at this thing nationwide, we're talking about 3+ months of inventory. So we could round it up to 4. We could say that we're probably going to get close to 4 months of inventory here soon, nationally speaking. And they're thinking that traditionally 6 months is when we start to see more of a shift in the prices. And if we start to see more, they could see that 5 months is the prediction. Again, this is crystal ball. They're saying at 5 months of inventory, we could actually start seeing national home prices start going down. And their thought process behind this is the equity. There's so much equity in the homes that people might be more willing, if they're actually having to sell their house and actually put it on the market, that they would be more willing at about 5 months to start dropping their prices a little bit more because of the amount of equity that they have. So here's your national months of supply. We look at this nationally speaking, 3.6. We can see that it has started ticking up since 2020. We start to see more and more inventory. 3.6. Here's the danger area, if we will. Like, we don't really want to see this. We do want to see more inventory, 4 or 5 months. Like, that's healthy. We do want to see 4 or 5 months worth of inventory, and 4 or 5 months with lower interest rates would be even better. And with that being said, this is kind of where it starts shifting into that buyer's market, which essentially wouldn't be as bad either. It just means that interest rates would probably go down significantly more, and we probably see a little bit cheaper home prices. So this is what's very interesting. So when we're looking at national data, I think one of the biggest things, especially as people talk about crash, inventory, all these, and we're going to look at Colorado data here soon, and we can actually see that Colorado, like, this isn't truly representative of us. A lot of these things are happening in Florida and Texas. And so here it is, active housing inventory for sale compared to the pre-pandemic. So less than 50%, north of 50%. We can see this like in these areas in this middle, right? Like, we can actually see, here's Austin, here's Tampa, right? We're playing with Miami a little bit. That these guys had such steep home price increases, and there was this huge flood of people going in, that now homes have actually been sitting for a little bit longer. There's way more inventory on the market. And so their prices, everything's pretty stagnant. And we might actually start to see more of some price corrections happen in these areas first. And we already know that for the most part, Colorado follows the coast. So things that happen out in California and things that happen in Florida, they start making their way in, and then we start to experience some things in Colorado. And I did see something on realtor.com. I don't have this slide, but there was something that said like we are poised with our weeks of inventory in the last 2 years have gone up. I want to say like 120%, or not weeks of inventory, but our inventory levels have gone up about 120% from the last 2 years. And with our price point, and we were like the highest price point area that they were looking at, and it was like out of the top 10 that they're thinking that we could see some price corrections. And you can see this, like our inventory, we're also rising. Like we are this green. LA, then up northeast, like all these little areas where I feel like the millennials are truly moving right now into this area. Their inventory levels are decreasing, where us with the higher price point, we're increasing, and these guys don't have as high of a price point, but they had such big demand in 2019 when everything was happening that now their inventory levels are increasing more and more. So this is what it says. You called it right about the house crash. What do you see coming? They don't. They don't see a correction really happening. We might see something kind of moving around a little bit, but they don't foresee this turning into 2008. So as we're looking at this thing, not 2008, but month over month shift in home prices since 1990. So here we are. So we go from January to December. This is kind of what we're looking at right now. We're seeing a little bit in the blue, which blue means we're going up, right? So we're looking at this. We started seeing a little bit less 2022, that we can actually see the home prices change. And we all remember this is when interest rates started going up. Interest rates started going up the fastest we ever saw interest rates go up in our society. Then we go through 2023, it kind of carried over into January. We started seeing it normalize a little bit. Then in the winter, prices started going down again, which we know. And then here we are, prices are going up. So if this shows us anything, this is truly the seasonality of real estate. And so we can truly get a gauge on kind of what's happening. And if we were to follow anything, like here we are, right? We're living in this blue box. That is what, March? And then we have all the way until what, August, where we could potentially keep seeing some appreciation, especially with us being in an election year. And I'm sure we could actually go back here and keep going back every 4 years and see kind of what has happened. And we'd probably see some correlation with the election years and with interest rates and with home prices. We're not going to truly dive into that too much, though. So we're looking at this thing, and just like as we always do, the housing market is in a better position for lower mortgage rates. And so halfway through the year, like we made it. This is where we're at. We're looking at this thing, weekly housing inventory. We're still seeing more inventory, which is a solid. And here we are. Here's 2024. Here's your visual representation of that. In July, we're moving up 28% more inventory than last year as a nation. So national inventory has risen 28%. Again, 2019, pre-2019, those are what we consider healthy levels. That is a normal market. So as we're going up, this is a good thing. More inventory, more choices. That means that as more inventory is hitting the market, and if interest rates start to tick down, there won't be the frenzy that we saw in 2021. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to see some inflated prices, because most likely we will. If interest rates go down 100 basis points and we see, 6%, we probably do see some stuff start to change pretty drastically in home prices. We already talked about national single family home 2 slides ago. And then price cut percentage, we're sitting at 38%. Historically speaking, 33%, 1/3 of all homes take a price cut every year. And here we are, we're just higher than 2023. And at this point in time, we're higher than 22 as well. But again, we'll kind of see what this starts to look like as we start to get more closer to the end of the year with interest rates. Because if interest rates do start to go down, because this is when they were peaking really, really quickly, that if interest rates started to go down, we could probably kind of flush out somewhere around here. Pending sales. So 381,057 homes, which is good. 2023, we're seeing a little bit about the same, and it's less than what we had in 2022. So we constantly want to see more pending sales, which just means that people are tired of being on the sidelines. And here it is. Here's your contract pending. This is where we're kind of sitting at. So still right in line with 2023 data, and 2022 again. We still have pretty low interest rates here, so that's what's driving a lot of this. And then as interest rates were staying elevated, we started to see it kind of plummet a little bit. I'm not going to talk about the 10-year yield. I'm not going to talk about mortgage spreads. And let's look at your purchase application data. We kind of dipped off a little bit, but again, this was going into holidays, and it was kind of weird. Like even at the office, we saw this. Like it was like 2 weeks, even kind of spilled over today. Kim and I were talking about this when we first joined on the call. Was like people are still on vacation, and I think they went on vacation longer this year. We experienced this in the office. Like the office got pretty quiet for about 2 weeks. And so I think that a lot of people are taking more vacations. They're kind of just getting away from everything and still hitting these reset buttons. So we're still in the basement here with purchase application data, but they're still happening. And I think that's the biggest thing is life events that are motivating people, and that's what we're looking for. And so we just need to be making sure that we're having as many conversations as possible, because while this line is low and this is basement levels, maybe we're almost in the crawl space here, that we should still be talking to people, because still life happens and people are looking to move. So inflation data, and Fed speeches, always, right? Like as we're going through here, they're looking at inflation. I don't think inflation is going to truly make a whole big difference, because they've already started to curb it. It's really going to be jobs data. Again, unfortunately, the more people that lose the jobs, the better interest rate they're going to do. So while that's super anti-American to be like, yes, lose jobs, because we don't want to be those people, that's actually what's going to create the interest rate going down. I don't think it has anything to do with inflation. And when they start talking about Powell's testimony and Fed speeches, if they start talking about how they're going to start raising rates, then people start getting scared that they're going to start raising rates, and that hurts us as well. So we look at this, and this came out last week, right? And here's DMAR. So if we're looking at this, we're at $608,000 is our median price point. Again, median numbers, the lowest price home in the Denver metro and the highest price home, and they worked all the way. And these are sold numbers, and they work all the way in the middle. That middle number is $608,000, which is up over last month, 1.3%. Closed homes, we saw less homes sell, 17% down. Sales volume also went down 17%. Months of inventory, we're at 2.78 months of inventory. So we're seeing homes sit on the market longer, which is what's dictating that number. And I think that's one of the things we have to keep in mind as well, is for anyone to be able to even like count these months of inventory. That's why like 2021 data was so very weird and skewed, because again, it needs to actually sit in the hopper a little bit to be able to collect and scrape the data. So these numbers are pretty real. 2.78, like when we start seeing numbers go up, that means like those are pretty good numbers, because homes are actually sitting a little bit longer. And our median days in the MLS, so again, the homes that aren't priced right that are here, and the homes that are priced well under and very strategically are here, and they work their way in the middle. 12 days on market is where we're at. So 12 days on market is our days. And so if we're looking at this thing, active inventory is up, new listings down, pending sales are up. So kind of different when we start talking about what's happening at a national level versus us. And again, this is what's driving everything, interest rates. So I did put it for June 1 to July 8th. And so if we can just look at this, like here's 7%. And again, these are prime numbers. And I think we have to keep that in mind, is that these are well-qualified buyers. Well-qualified buyers that are getting the best rates, because they're looking through and they're like, you know what, this person has great credit, they have a great job, everything's looking good for this person. And those are the people getting 7%. Most people aren't really qualifying for that. So as we're looking at here, and we're talking about 6.8, in most realities, these people are truly qualifying for 7%. These borrowers are. So we can see that we're truly living around here. There's some ebbs and flows in here, and not huge because we're not talking about 100 basis points, right? We're talking 10 basis points, 20 basis points, 30. Like we haven't swung that big. We're really talking anywhere from 10 to 20 basis points swing is what we're doing in any given week over some time. And so I don't think that's enough to move the needle with any real conversations. We just need to be still making sure that we're having the conversations. If we were to look over like 1 year's time, these swings would help, right? Like we're talking 7.7 down to 6.5. We're talking 100, was that 125 basis points? Like that's a huge swing. Like those are the swings that would actually do something. And again, I think that if we were to start to see 6%, 6% I think opens up the floodgate. Now I don't think that's what we want to see. I don't think there's any world where 6% like happens overnight. But at 6%, there's a lot of people out there that do believe that that really starts moving some stuff. So if we were to get even more hyper local, let's go Arvada. That's where our brokerage is. If we're looking at this thing, median price point, we're pretty flat, 730. So while we just looked at DMAR numbers saying the median price point is 608, if we get into Arvada, $730,000 for a home, and the median price for new listings hitting is 700,000. So again, this is strategic to me. When I start looking at this and I say, you know what, this is the median list price for homes that are actually sitting on the market, but yet new homes that are coming in, they're actually getting ahead of the market. And we talk about this in pricing strategy, right? Like get ahead of the market or else you're going to be chasing it. We're seeing people put the homes on the market and they're looking at their competitors and they're saying, all those other homes, we don't care what they're doing. We don't care what Zillow did a year ago. We don't care what your neighbors said that they bought their house for. We're looking at active inventory and we're going to try to get underneath it because that's our competition, not the home that sold a month ago, 2 months ago. Active inventory, 700,000 new homes hitting the market versus 730. Price per square foot is going up. Average days on market is going up. Median went down. And so if we're looking at this thing, that tells me that people are actually pricing their home at more of a strategic level, and which is carrying those top numbers down lower. And so we're seeing the median days on market go down because of how they're actually pricing their houses. 50% price decreases. So here we go again. So when we're talking about homes that are going off, these homes that are already on the market for $730,000, we're seeing price decrease to 50%. We just looked at national data, right? We know that 33% is the normal, the historic average. Right now, national data is 38% of homes. In Arvada, we're sitting at 50%. We look at this thing and we talk about price decreases, or price increases. I'm sorry, price increases. That's truly, to me, that's new homes. This is phase 2, phase 3 of homes hitting the market in Arvada for new builds. We're seeing a 4% increase in homes hitting. 6%, this number is going up as well. So guys, when we're talking about this and we're looking at these prices, talking about a $700,000 home at a 7% interest rate, we have more discerning buyers that are going through and deals aren't sticking together, and 6% of them are falling down. We're getting relisted. Inventory, 268. Median rent price to 2,900. So that number is going down, and I think it's just because of there's enough inventory out there. Like I think I have 4 or 5 rentals in my neighborhood that are just sitting empty. Now, with that being said, they're priced at like $4,300 a month. I think is what my yeah. One's $4,300 and it's a house, and then I have a townhome that's right next to us as well, and I think that they're at $3,900 for a townhome. And they're brand new houses, but still. So when you start thinking about this and the median price point going down, there's inventory, and then your market action is 53. So that 53 number is saying this: we in Arvada are at a lesser seller's market than we were this time last month. So, and this is just showing you, right? Prices are going down, and we're seeing average days on market go up, even though median days are going down. We're also seeing price decreases. So as we're going through this, we're just seeing a lesser of a seller's market, which in the grand scheme of things isn't too big of a deal. And we do want to see more inventory. More inventory leads to less competition, which leads to home prices coming to a more affordable level, which is kind of what we're looking for. And then let's just take a look at this real quick. So as we're diving in, let's go to our VADA. Let's take, not that number. Let's go conventional, right? Let's go conventional loan. Let's call it 6.8 for fun. Let's call it 6.9. Let's round up. So let's go 6.9. And what we say our price point was in our VADA. We're going to go, let's just call it 700. Let's find the new homes. 700, 6.9. I should have maybe changed it a little bit. I want something that looks newer, but we can see like as we're going price drops, like we're seeing them price drops like we're seeing it, like it's very real. I don't see any new homes though that are going to hit our price point that we're looking. So let's go to a home that maybe potentially might be overpriced. I don't know. Here you go. Here's 698. They did have a price drop by $27,000. And so the home's probably still a little bit overpriced. And you can see that we're looking at this, and this is what, a 1970s home. And so if we're looking at this thing, let's go through it. And we're talking 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square feet. So 1,400 square feet. And it looks like this is a car enthusiast's house. Like as we're going through, pretty big backyard. It appears to be not a Hutchinson. This looks a little bit different. I don't know what kind of build this would be. But we're looking through it. It looks like it has your early 2000s updates to the house. As we're going in here, yard's not really well taken care of. Oh well, but let's look at this thing. And let's go all the way down to the bottom. 6.9% interest rate, conforming loan, 20% down. So that's what we're dealing with. There's no HOA. And we're talking about a $4,100 a month payment for this house. Now, I just told you I had a $4,200 rental next door to me. It's been sitting, like it's not rented. But if we're looking at this is what's going through our consumers' heads. And so we're talking about our VADA. And this is what a $700,000 home is on the market. In all reality, it's probably not really worth $700,000. This is what your money gets you in our VADA right now. And this is why we're seeing these discerning buyers, with 6% of homes being relisted and 50% price decreases. Is I would want to know, and I would want to go through here, and I would want to figure out, like, why is this home being listed for $700,000? Is this what the neighbor did on Zillow 6, 12, 2 years ago? Or what are the comps that are supporting this? Because obviously we've been sitting on the market for however many days. And 5 days ago, they made the decision to drop it $27,000, which now they're the people that are chasing the market, right? We're talking about this thing, 50% price decreases, median list price at 730, which is kind of lining up, right? We're talking $25,000 down to 700,000. They're chasing the market. And this is what's important, because now we're looking at it. And even my conversation with you guys, I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this house. We stigmatized it. It's a stigmatized property. And this is why pricing strategy truly matters as we're consulting our sellers on what they should and shouldn't be listing homes for.